question, but could you prove the resurrection scientifically?
Well, I don't think the issue is science. It's quite difficult to prove anything about a person or event in history. I think you need to understand the difference between the scientific and legal method of determining truth.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, the scientific method is based upon showing that something is true by repeating the event in the presence of the person questioning the fact. In other words, the truth of an hypothesis is tested by controlled experiments.
Could you give me an example? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, well, let's say I say ivory soap floats, and you say, I don't believe it. Well, I get you in the kitchen, in controlled situation, we get 8.5 inches of water in the sink, 82 degrees, and I start to repeat the event, just kind of, plunk, 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 and after 100 times, we come to the conclusion, ivory soap floats. Now, if that was the only method, Tom, of determining what is or what happened, you couldn't prove that you went to your first hour class this morning. In fact, you couldn't even prove you went to the class where I was speaking, because it can't be repeated in a controlled situation.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
See, there's also the other method, which is called the legal method. Now, the legal method is based upon testimony. In other words, the verdict is reached on the sufficiency of the evidence. Now, this involves 3 things. One is oral testimony, written testimony, and exhibits, such as a bullet, a gun, or a textbook, etc. Now, using that method, you could pretty well prove you were in your first hour class this morning. The professor remembers you. Your friends could give testimony to it. You have your notebooks with, your notes in your own handwriting. Now, the scientific method is not appropriate for answering or refuting such questions as, did George Washington live? Was Martin Luther King a civil rights leader? Was John F. Kennedy assassinated? Who was Jesus of Nazareth? Was Jesus raised from the dead? See, these events cannot be repeated in a controlled situation. So the question, is the resurrection scientific, or can you prove it scientifically, is out of order. You have to apply the legal method, which is based upon testimony.
Well, these men that gave their testimony, couldn't they have been wrong?
I don't think so. You see, here were 12 men, Tom, and 11 of them died martyrs' deaths for one thing, an empty tomb and the appearances of a man by the name of Jesus of Nazareth. Now, some people will say to me, well, look, a lot of people have died for a lie. Yes, but they thought it was the truth. Now, if the resurrection was a lie, here were 11 men that knew it, realized they wrote as eyewitnesses. In Acts, they said for 40 days they lived and walked and ate with Jesus. So if the resurrection was a lie, these 11 men knew it. And therefore, you'd have to say they not only died for a lie, but they knew it was a lie. And I would challenge you to find 11 men in history that not only died for a lie, but knew it was a lie. You see, they signed their testimony in blood. They went through the test of death to determine their veracity. And tell you the truth, I'd rather trust their testimony than most people I meet today who aren't willing to walk across the street for what they believe, let alone die for it. But do you understand what I've been saying here?
Well, more or less.